Hello everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Mythic Plus. Now this week we have Raging, which means that when a monster drops below 30% HP, they enrage, dealing 100% more damage. Necrotic, which means that enemy apply a healing debuff whenever they attack that reduces healing received by 3%. This effect also stacks. And Tyrannical, which means that boss mobs do more damage and have more HP. Now tanks, this week you want to keep pulls to less than 7 mobs because Necrotic and Raging are both very difficult affixes. So you want to minimize the amount of hits that you're taking in and the amount of damage. If you want to err on the side of caution, I do suggest pulls of less than 5. Now when the whole pull that you have on you becomes Raging, that's when you need to start throwing out stuns and snares. You also need to start kiting whenever your Necrotic stacks go above 15. Now whenever a whole pack is Raging and you need to run back in there to pick up aggro or to re-snare, make sure you use a defensive cooldown before running in there so that you don't get completely torn apart. Also, because we do have Tyrannical this week, you do have to rotate some defensive cooldowns into big boss damaging abilities. This week, consider using trinkets that are on use, maybe like an Absorb trinket or a Reliquary of Souls, just because these trinkets tend to be stronger while active, so you have more defensive cooldowns to use for trash and bosses. DPS, this week bring your AoE and cleave spec because when the mobs get below 30% and start raging, they are deadly and need to be eliminated as soon as possible. Make sure you start throwing out your snares for your tank at about 50% of the mob's HP so that they can begin kiting for Necrotic, and once the mobs dip down below 30%, in addition to snares, start throwing out stuns as well to diminish the amount of swings that they can take at your tank. Also, since this week is Tyrannical, make sure you save some defensive abilities for big boss damaging abilities, and whenever trash is raging underneath 30%, it is very important to keep them interrupted. Now you should be keeping them interrupted at all times, but under 30% it's even more crucial, so interrupt with stuns, charges, anything you have that can interrupt. Make sure you use it. Healers, this week you want to keep the tank topped off as early in the pull as possible. This means that he'll have less Necrotic stacks and your heals will be more effective early on in the pull. Now if your tank doesn't run out and gets above 33 stacks of Necrotic, this means that they can no longer receive healing, so you shouldn't waste your mana on trying to heal them. At this point, try to help with stuns, snares, damage reduction abilities, or maybe even a little bit of DPS if you can. Now when your tank is above 15 stacks, at this point he's taking 45% less healing. So if your tank is still not running out at 15 stacks, start using damage reduction abilities on him at this point so that they can survive. Now when the trash pull starts becoming enraged, you can also help out with stuns, snares, and knockbacks. Overall this week it is a very difficult week. It is a 9 out of 10, and this week is very difficult because none of the affixes are avoidable. With the affixes, that means that there is tough trash and tough bosses. Raging and Necrotic is a very tough combo, requiring the tank to kite, re-engage the mobs whenever they can to pick up aggro again, re-snare, and interrupts. So make sure you keep your pulls manageable. I'd say less than 7 if you're comfortable, but if you're not and this is your first time pushing a little bit higher, do less than 5. Also be careful with mini bosses this week. Since they cannot be snared and stunned, their Raging and Necrotic will be even worse. Also, between pulls, make sure you drop combat. That'll give your healer a break and ability to heal you because your Necrotic stacks will fall off. So this week, try not to chain pull too much, have a little bit of break in between pulls, and you will be able to go out there and get a key done. So remember, this is a difficult week. It really depends on your tank and their ability to kite and deal with Necrotic. So hopefully you guys can find the right tank that can do this for you, or if you are the tank, please be mindful of Necrotic stacks. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, good luck out there.